Unfortunately, we are running so late, so we have to go on with the female entrepreneurship success stories. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to totally improvise, seeing as like this morning we originally said protocol out the window, right? Would everyone like to stand? Like everyone's just miking up? Maybe do a little stretch? But like a really like a reach for the stars kind of stretch. So I just want you to feel the energy in the room. How amazing. Yes? Just take it all in. I am the center of the universe. So the next panel, you may sit, you may carry on standing. I'm winging it, just by the way, because thank you. I'm winging it because we need to get everybody mic'd up. But my name is Michelle Kurivar, and I've made being a creative disruptive my full-time job. Judy, are you mic'd up, eh? Would you please come and take a seat? So, yeah, I love technology, media. I'm a marketer by trade. But I really think that innovation is about doing things differently. And that's such a big word. It's the same as entrepreneurship. And the topic of today is success. And I think today we've spoken about, I think the most exciting thing about everything that's happened today is that there's that golden thread. No one has forcibly said to everybody, please mention the girl child, please mention mentorship, please mention impact, please mention stop talking and start doing. And yet we are all saying it. And I think this is thanks to one of Irene's protocols and the fact that she had such a strong vision when she put this conference together. It's been an absolute honor. I've served with her now for the 8 months that she's preparing. And her mission was find the doers and get them in one space. And the world will never be the same again. And someone else earlier mentioned something about pioneers are the ones that history remember. And what I want to say to you is that every single one of you in this room are a pioneer because it starts with you. It starts with the action. So all of my speakers, could you please come up? I'm going to introduce you. No, I'm going to introduce you all. And Margaret, are you ready? Lovely. So yes, getting back to, I'm going to introduce everybody just now. We have one person short, but getting back to the crux of what I would like this panel to be discussing. And I think we've had a lot of storytelling in the morning and now afternoon. And I'm going to ask my panel, who are powerhouse women of success, to keep it powerhouse and punchy and really leave the room with something profound around the word success. And for me, I think the realness in the room is also very important because success is not something you buy in a bottle or something that you luckily come across. Success is about falling down 7 times and getting up 8. Would you agree? And I think the realness is that the conversations about women not supporting women and women being intimidated by men, but I think it really does start with us becoming courageous and brave, like Sarah Ann was saying earlier on. It's about understanding that we have got what it takes, and it's okay to fall down and get back up again. Now, these women, those role models that we were speaking about, are role models that have fallen and got up, I'm assuming, and who have walked the path and who have climbed the mountain. And it's through their success that we can possibly learn how to walk something. It's what I like to call sharing of best practices. So without further ado, we have Judy Dlamani. Judy, and then Gina Din and Margaret Hirsch. And I wouldn't do any justice. You all have all their details. I wouldn't do any justice. So I've asked each of them to please begin with sharing their story. And I'd like to start with Judy, please.
Thanks, Michelle. Good afternoon. Congratulations to Irene for putting together this formidable team of women, not just the panelists and the speakers, but everyone who's here. It's such an honor to be part of this audience. How do I share my story? Born in Westville in Durban, somewhere in KwaZulu-Natal, during the dark days of apartheid, and having a dream from the age of 4 to become a medical doctor, eventually becoming one after failing 2 courses at medical school, and feeling so useless and worthless, but rising up again and saying, I'm going to prove to this system that I can do it. And after that, I worked as a GP for many years because I had to raise my family, my kids, got married when I was still at medical school, and had to raise kids as I was going along with running my career, and then decided to change track. At the time, I thought it was because I was affected by crime, but I've since learned that I tend to get bored. After about 10 to 15 years, I feel like I need to leave my comfort zone. I feel like I need to challenge myself because I'm not a confident person. So I always want to prove to myself that I can actually achieve more because I start from a negative position of not being confident. So every time I'm proving to myself I can do this. Okay, I've done this. Let me prove to myself I can do something else. So I went into investment banking, then I changed into business. Now I want to be an academic. So that's just my journey. I can actually say more, but I'll give over to Gina.
It's so interesting that you talked about being bored, because I think successful entrepreneurs tend to get bored really, really quickly. And I know that's something that I struggle with, is that, when I've built something, I then want to build something else, because I'm a great builder, but I'm not a very good routine person. Anyway, I'm from Kenya. I run and own a successful and actually the most awarded African communications group. This month, we began 20 years ago in 1997. We started our PR firm. And it's been a real journey. It really has. I remember when I started going to pitch to clients and, with men that I had employed, but we'd go into boardrooms of various corporates, and everybody would assume that I was the one taking the notes. And, the men, it was the men that worked for me were always given, the main seat, and, I would sit there and it's like, okay, well, and then I would do the pitching. So it was really, it's been really interesting to see. And that, to be honest with you, it still happens, quite often. Or we'll go into, and this is particularly into government offices, to pitch work to government, and we'd get there and all the men would sit there and the tea was brought, and then everybody would kind of look at me like, when are you going to start pouring, kind of thing, So it's really interesting to have walked that journey and, to see where it is today. But I think some of the things that we struggled with 20 years ago haven't changed that much. The access to, the lack of capital for entrepreneurs, the old boys network that my sister Anne talked about today. I mean, some of those challenges are still there, which is it's really quite sad that, some of the, when you think that you've been through, you've been successful, and then you look at actually some of the issues that we've tried to break through still exist, and that's 20 years later, which is really, really sad. And that's why, having women come together like we have today, thank you very much, Irene, is so important, because we need to begin an old girls network. I mean, if the old boys have a network, then we need to begin our own. And I think the other thing that women need to do, and I know it's what I've done, is that we keep waiting to be invited to the table. The invitations are not coming, girls.
Yeah.
You know, that's just as simple as that. We just need to take our chair and sit there. You know, we need to gate crash. Because if we sit around waiting for that invitation to come, we're going to be sitting here for the 170 years that Anne talked about today. And I think that's, you know, that it's something that I've done very well is I've gate crashed a lot of, I'm a professional gate crasher. You know, I think that's really the truth, is that I've just
Have you
gone.
got 10 points to share on how to gate crash effectively?
I just took my chair and sat, you know, and whether I was invited or not. So I think, you know, successful women, and you know, I'll end here because I think a lot of the stories that we've heard today are from very successful women. And I really think this room is full of successful women. But I think that's not enough. What I think we need to be talking about is significance. Because to be honest with you, success is temporary. You know, and we have many politicians in the room, and, you know, power is temporary. These things but we need to be significant, because significance cannot be taken away from us.
I'd really like to explore that just now, and I'm going to throw that into the mix with regards to a question, because the last panel was interesting with regards to the education and the crappy, like, you know, schooling and all the rest of it. And I have a concept of, if we each take one with us, like basically mentorship, how can that become significant? So I'd like to come back to that just now. Sure. Thank you very much, Dina. Margaret.
Okay, well, I can tell you all about myself, but most you can read it anyway. But what I read coming down here in the plane in a magazine was a frightening statistic. This is a statistic. 66% of all the work done in the world is done by women. 50% of all the food produced in the world is produced by women. But only 10% of the salaries in the world are earned by women. And to me, the most frightening of all, only 1% of the land in the world is owned by women. Now, I want to tell you, I break that mold, because I personally own over R1 billion worth of property. And I didn't get that way, the easy way. I battled, I struggled, and I got there. But what I can tell you is that women, you have to work. You've got to stop talking and start working. It's very, very simple. You can talk till the cows come home, but until you start working, nothing's going to happen. And so with my journey, what started me in my life is my mother was widowed when I was 10. And I saw a woman who had been a very spoiled, adopted child, who'd married the boy next door and had never had to do anything for herself, thrown into a world where she couldn't cope at all. She had no driver's license, she had no bank account, she had no skills, and she'd never worked. So when I saw her when I was 10, going through that, I said, I will never, ever put myself in that position. But we were poor. We were the old proverbial poor whites, and my mother got a job for 30 Rand a month at Nene Leicester in Durban. And we had to, she couldn't obviously keep us on that, so I got put into a foster home in Loop Street, Pietermaritzburg, where I battled and struggled, and eventually my mother managed to get me back, and we lived in the back room of a relative's house, and we just had to struggle along. Now, I could have stayed there, but I decided that I didn't want to be poor no more. I'd had enough. But how'd you get out? And in my matric year, we were 12 girls. 8 were married the first year out of school. And I was engaged. And I could have gone and got married and just been there and stayed there and done that. But one day I woke up and said, what am I doing? So I got, and to show you how old I am, I got on a boat called the Pendennis Castle, and I went to London to go and seek my fortune. And long story short, I actually got engaged to a Chinese man. My mother phoned me and said, you come home. And I can't still to this day believe that I did. And so I came home, and I met my husband, and he was 24 when I met him. He could neither read nor write. He'd been through the whole school system of this country and could still not read or write at age 24. And his father had said to him, look, you're never going to get your matric. You better go and get a job where you can work with your hands. So he did. And he started as a refrigeration technician. And when I married him, he was earning 25 Rand a week. So I sure as hell didn't marry him for his money. But but I decided that I'd have to work. And after 5 years of marriage, I fell pregnant. And you can imagine, after 5 years, you're jolly glad to be pregnant. And I went and I told my boss, and my boss said to me 2 words. He said to me, you're fired. And that was the day before the CCMA. You took your handbag and you went home. What else could you do? And so I went home and I thought, what did God give me? God gave me my brains and my 2 hands. That's all I had. So that's all you need. And I want each one of you, when you go home tonight, to take your oldest lipstick that you're not going to wear because the color's dreadful, and write on your mirror, I am enough. I am enough. And that's what you've got to say to yourself, I am enough. Okay. So when you've written that, you're going to read it every day, and don't be like me when my domestic worker said, "What the hell is the madam doing?" She's scribbling all over the mirror, and she wiped it all off, so I had to write it again. And then the third time I said, "Please leave it on there." So you've got to understand that you are enough, and whatever you got will never give you something that you can't cope with. So I was a shorthand typist by profession. So I started typing in the morning, the guys fetched their typing at the night, I typed in the night, and the guys fetched in the morning, and so we went on. At that same stage, it was 1976, 77, when Alan J. Holman started Game, Dion Friedlander started Dion's, and my husband was working as a refrigeration mechanic, and he said to his boss, "Why don't you start discounting?" His boss said, "Did you so flipping clever, go do it yourself." So he came home one day, and that's how we went from having 2 jobs and no children to having 2 children and no jobs in the space of 1 year. So we had to work mighty hard, and we had nothing to fall back on, so we had to just get stuck in and do it. And we just battled, and we struggled, and we started, and we just had to do things. And our first shop was the size of your bathroom, and it was so small. When I started doing microwave cooking, and I started teaching microwave cooking, we had to put all the fridges and stoves on the pavement, and I started teaching the ladies. And I realized that I had a gift. And those of you who've read Sylvia Walker's new book called Smart Woman, I wrote the foreword for her, and it says, and your purpose in life is to find your gift, and your mission in life is to give it away. And that's what you've got to do. And I found my gift. My gift was teaching people.
On that note, on giving or finding your gift and then
Yes.
and then sharing it,
Yeah.
I'd like to explore a little, and I know it's going off the track with the conversation, mentorship. You know, if you look at how many women are out there that are failing dismally, it's lonely. Even if they are successful, it's still lonely. I think it's important that we understand what peer mentorship is. So it's not just about holding hands and being friendly with one another, but it's actually creating that 5-point plan of how to gate crash, and the 5-point plan of how to start that business with an unemployed husband and so forth. If I can just please go to you, Judy. What are your thoughts on mentorship, and how can it serve Africa?
You know, it's interesting, Michelle, because we don't have enough people that can actually mentor the young people that we have in the continent, just in this country alone. Each one of us is so busy trying to make success of our lives that we don't have enough time to have the one-on-one mentorship. But what I've learned, actually one lady came to me the other day and said, "You say you haven't got time to mentor, but you've mentored me without meeting me." You know, I actually have watched you over the years, and I looked at you doing what you do. I did an MBA after MBCHB, and because you actually were my role model. So sometimes it's not a one-on-one. One of the things that I've actually done, because I felt I didn't have the time to mentor as many people as I wanted to. I do have mentees, but I haven't got enough time to go around the many people I'd love to mentor, is I wrote a book. And that book, in my view, is meant to mentor, to inspire, because it shares the life journeys of women that are successful. I think the more we share the stories, podiums like this are very important, but only a few of us. I think one of the ministers from Malawi kept on saying, we actually need to bring people that have less, people that don't have exposure to television even, you know, because radio alone is not enough. So I believe that it's very important that each one of us lives as they rise. That's one. But the other thing that you said, Michelle, is that it's not only a mentee-mentor thing where you're actually mentoring the other generation, Generation X or Z, but it's also peer-to-peer mentorship, because, as you say, it gets lonely. Sometimes you just need to share your experiences, because when you do that, people realize that it's possible. Maybe if I do it this way, that's the best way it's going to work. But the other thing is that, going back, actually, you've had brilliant panelists. I don't think I've ever attended a conference where there was just so much formidable power on the different panelists that we've had, where you actually say, we don't see enough professionals on TV. The drama series that we see don't actually have the STEM type of professionals, so that the kids that watch those television series actually want to emulate those
You
people.
kind of get exposed to what
You
can
get
be.
what's possible. You know what's out there.
Yes.
So mentorship for me is bigger than just a one-on-one. It's bigger than just the same, actually the different generational passing of the baton, but it's also intergenerational, but also just the books, the television
Leading
series,
through
the
example.
radio, exactly.
I think a big thing for me is that success women don't own. They don't own their success. I know humility is important, but there's nothing more exciting for me than sitting with like, I get goosebumps with women who like own their success. And I think we need to learn how to own success. And I think one of the things that I wanted to speak about, and Gina, maybe you can elaborate on it, is if we embrace our success as women, we become those role models, right? And I think a couple of people like spoke about, I think the lady from the Netherlands spoke about how her child, it kind of became osmosis that she thought she could be the president. So that is leading through example. And so once again, how do we lead through example by owning our success?
I think we need to be unapologetic about being ambitious. I think that's part of it, is that, we just need to, I mean, it's not a bad thing for a woman to be ambitious. And I think that's part of it. And we should be proud to tell our stories. Quite often I interview women and they're very technically very sound, and, I'm about to give them a job, and you want to hear their accomplishments. They will never tell you them in the way a man will. It's very rare that they will.
Like my husband, when he comes back from golf, every Saturday, it's terrible how they can bloat and carry on and on. Why don't we have that?
And so you'll be interviewing, and a man will tell you, how at his previous job he achieved X, Y, Z. His company benefited by him doing. But a woman will very rarely do I get a woman who will really articulate, how accomplished she is. So I think part of it is for us to start owning our successes, start owning who we are, start owning what we've accomplished. And so I think that's part of it. When it comes to mentoring, it is very difficult to mentor one-on-one. We're busy people. I've just started something which has been really successful. It's only been a month, but I've just started a YouTube channel where, there's a 3-minute YouTube message every day, and I have to film it for half a day a month.
What is that YouTube channel?
It's just at www.ginadin.com, and it's on there. But the feedback that I'm getting from young women, it's amazing. So I think there's different ways of mentoring. It might be writing books, but it's really important we tell our stories, because if we don't tell them, somebody's going to be telling them for us. And then the role models that that young people have will not be African role models.
Exactly.
So I think that's we have a responsibility as African women to tell our stories, the African story, and that's why and that way we can have our own narrative. Otherwise, somebody else is going to be setting our agenda.
Yeah, and once again, those role models in Africa need to be more visible.
Exactly.
They need to be visible in all sectors and all industry. Margaret, success for Africa, mentorship, what are your thoughts?
My passion and what I do is called the Girls with Dignity Project. When I was made businesswoman in South Africa in 2012, I wanted to leave a legacy, and what could I do? And I discovered to my horror, because at that stage I was 62, and I had no idea that in this country there are 9 million schoolgirls between the ages of 11 and 18 who only go, of which only 40% go to school for 4 weeks a month. 60% can only go for 3 weeks a month because they've got no sanitary protection. So with my friend Sue Barnes, we started making the reusable sanitary pads, which I take into the schools literally every week. I try and do it one school a week, and I give the pads to the girls. They last
go
for,
yourself?
I go myself, yeah. They last for 5 years, and we give them to the girls in the schools, and we show them. First of all, we teach them how their body works. So you see me with my apron, with my uterus and my ovaries drawn on, because I tell them that the real ones are gone. Those days are gone. So, then I show them how their bodies work, because most of them don't even know how they work. And then I've actually expanded that, and you're going to see the men in the room cringe now, because we also do the prepex, which is the male circumcision. because circumcised males will have 60% less chance of contracting HIV/AIDS. So we go in, and I do the girls, and I have a fellow who goes and he does the boys. We teach them first of all about their bodies and how, and then what we noticed is that in the schools, because the girls were only going for 3 weeks of the month, their marks were very bad. So the girls were averaging between 40 and 60%, where the boys were averaging between 60 and 80%. So what message was being sent out to the girls?
Yeah.
So now, with the reusable sanitary pads, we monitor their marks, and there's a girl here on Mitchell's Plain who went from a 42% aggregate to an 86% aggregate within 6 weeks.
Wow.
That's the
phenomenal.
difference. Because she could write the exam. She said, I knew I was the cleverest girl in the school, Mrs. Hirsch, but I couldn't write the exam because I couldn't go to school. Because look at my uniform, it's pale blue. If I sat down and I had leaked, I was too embarrassed to go. So
Yeah,
I
and
just
when you're
didn't
in
go.
puberty, it's such a big
It
thing.
is such a big thing.
I'd like to just implore to all of you, it is the very last session of the day tomorrow, and I know you will all be exhausted from the inspiration, but the Legacy Project is about Africa's girl child and mentorship and how we would like all of you to participate. So just a little punt on that. The final question, and please take a couple of minutes to elaborate on it. I think success, defining what success is important. Like I said earlier, I don't think it comes in a bottle, and I think a lot of youngsters or young entrepreneurs that are starting, when they have their first failure, wobble. We have an 85% failure rate of women entrepreneurs in the world. So it's not just Africa. That is the statistic in the world. And that is in the first 3 years of their business. So imagine if 10 or 20% of those women could become successful. And I think women like yourselves who have had success, what are the 3 most profound shares or lessons or syllables of advice or tools of magnificence that you would share with this audience?
If I can go first, I've always been very deliberate about wanting to succeed. I've always been very ambitious. I was very shy as a child, but extremely ambitious and extremely assertive. And I think it's important to know what you want from life, because you are in control of your destiny, except for God, obviously, but you actually have the power to change your own destiny. I had the luck of being raised by 2 parents that were very assertive, that were hustlers. They did so many things to make sure that we were where we were. So for me, that was the first thing. Being ambitious, but also hardworking. It's not easy. Nothing comes easy.
Eat your crop.
Yes, you actually just need to work hard all the time. When you fail, it actually doesn't define you. But you should actually just want to make sure that you prove to yourself. I always talk about self because that's one entity that you will live with forever. Mm-hmm. And that's one entity that you have control over. So you have to prove to yourself and nobody else what you are capable of. So when you fail, it should actually say to you, maybe you didn't work hard enough. Maybe the tools that you used were not right for the context that you found yourself in. So it's hard work, it's focus. Mm-hmm. We actually tend to get involved with so many things, and we actually don't carry through that particular thing that you want to achieve. So it's hard work, it's ambition, it's focus, and grit. Mm-hmm. The more I've failed is the more I've realized just how resilient I am. Mm-hmm. But the other thing before I stop is just networks. It's the ecosystem that influences who you become. There's something that was said by our Minister Tabete, which is profound. I don't think I would be where I am if it was not for the policies of the government of the day. And what's special about the policies of the government of the day is that every woman in South Africa, regardless of race or social class, was impacted positively because of those policies. I just want us to applaud them for that. Mm-hmm. I'm not for a minute saying we don't have problems, we don't have issues. But as she said, let's actually acknowledge those good things, because it's through acknowledging those good things that we will actually do better as a country, as a people. There's also something that was said by Usis Lulama, where she said, let's look at the good things that we do, because those good things, if we actually replicate them, then we can actually be where we want to be. So those things are very important, but also just networks. The people that we encounter in life have the potential to change not your life only, but the life of your generations that come. So it's important how you treat the people that you encounter, even at a conference like this, because you never know when you're going to meet them or your kids will meet them. So it's all those lessons that I've learned.
And it's so true, you know, I've traveled the world, Barcelona, New York, and for women, and Africa's becoming the shining example. Like, we've been struggling for many a year, and they're only starting to struggle now. And like, we well practiced, and our innovation and our, and our, you know, like when they, what is it, when two hard pieces of stone push against carbon, it like ignites the diamond. I think that's the analogy. I'm not a scientist, but we are starting to shine bright. Rihanna, hashtag Rihanna. Gina.
I think, you know, the three things for me are collaboration. I think we tend to, you know, want to do things alone. We want to own what we've achieved. We want to just, you know, it's ours, and we don't, you know, we just don't want anybody else in that turf. I think for me the biggest thing is learning to collaborate, to bring the best skill sets to anything that I'm doing, because none of us knows everything. So I think one of the things is collaboration. The second thing, and Judy touched on it, but she called it networks, and I would call it something else. I would call it relationships, because I think quite often, you know, we do business and it's purely transactional. And a lot of my very good friends today are people that I started with doing business with. And people like doing business with people. And if you look at Richard Branson, if you look at Steve Jobs, we don't really think about their brands. We think about who they are and what they stand for as people. So I think that's the second thing. The third thing is being able to embrace success and failure, because neither of them is permanent. So I think that's the other thing, is that, you know, it's going to be successful, but you know what, tomorrow you might fail. So I think it's just being able to embrace both in equal measure. Neither of them lasts forever. So I think those are the three things that I would say are, you know, if I was to give you three. There are many more, but if you stopped us at three, so I'll stop at three.
Thank you, Gina. Those are wise words, and we're going to follow you on your YouTube channel.
Please
get
do.
all the inspiration we can. Margaret?
Well, I just want to give you something that happened to me, and it proves that in this country, and I love this country, this is a country of wealth and opportunity and abundance, and I think we just have to understand that it's there. So I'm sitting in my store in Boxburg, of all places, and this lady comes running in. She said, Margaret, I'm 56 years old. I've been poor my whole life. You've got to help me. I've just had it. Today's the day I've had enough. So I say to her, well, what do you do? She says, well, I take clothes from rich ladies and I wash them out and then I sell them to poor ladies. I said, well, what's wrong with that? She said, because I hate it. I hate the smell of the clothes. I hate the washing and ironing. I hate it. So I said, what do you love? She said, I love baking. If I could just bake, Margaret, every day, I would just be in heaven. So I said, well, let's bake. Well, you have to understand, I haven't got any money to buy the ingredients. So it was very simple. If you have a skill, you can teach your skill. Go out and find me 4 ladies in the parking lot. Tell them, if they haven't got a job, tell them they must give you 250 rand, and you'll not only teach them to bake, but you'll teach them how to run a business and make a living.
So are you talking innovation? Are you talking thinking out the box?
Thinking out the box. You've got to think simple. You've got to think simple. Don't get way out of there. So we go and find 4 ladies in the parking lot. We get 250 rand from them. We get our 1,000 rand. We started 11 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we started baking. We started baking the cakes, and I showed her how to make them, and we started selling them straight away. Within 2 days, I taught her fondant icing so we could make fancier cakes. We started making layered cakes, making higher cakes. And in 10 days, we were making 1,000 rand a day selling our cakes. Now, and we carried on, and at the end of the month, we had a little graduation. Those 4 girls, when we got 4 more girls, they started teaching them, they started selling the cakes, and so it went on. But the best thing about it, and the thing that I want to get through to you, is as your self-esteem comes up, so your bank balance will come up with it. And her self-esteem started to come up, so the next time she charged 500 Rand a month to teach them. And after that, she said, well, I doubled it. She doubled it to 1,000. And long story short, within 18 months, she was charging those girls 6,000 Rand a month to teach them to bake. And she was making 110,000 Rand selling her cakes in 1 month. So that's how you can get, you don't have to go and borrow money. She didn't have to do anything. She taught her skills. And by teaching her skills to those women, and I haven't only done that with baking, and because I teach cooking and I cook in the shop and everything. I have a lady here, right here in Cape Town, who came to me, and she had never worked. All she had ever been is the maid in her parents' house. And she came to me, and I said, if you've got a skill, let's teach it. So we went out in the parking lot. We got 6 maids, 6 girls who weren't working, and we charged them 300 Rand. We taught them in my house how to clean the washing machine.
You're going to teach me how to bake.
Clean the washing machine. We taught them how to clean the vacuum cleaner. We taught them basic first aid, basic cooking. And then we hired them out to various different people. And she would hire them out and keep...
Just to get back to the 3 skills, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The
Okay,
three sharing.
so the 3 skills is, 1, you've got to think out the box. Okay.
Think
2
out the
is
box.
don't borrow money if you want to start a company, because you'll spend your life paying it back. And 3 is just work jolly hard and you'll get there.
That's amazing. I must say that, I mean, I think I could go on all day, and I'm sure all of you could as well. I'd like to open up the floor for a couple of questions. I'm going to be giving the mic to people who haven't had a chance yet. So there's a lady at the back there. Yeah?
Hi, my name is Tamara. First of all, every time when I go to conference, I miss the fact that we are all connected. Men, women, white or black. What I also miss, what is successful? What is failure? We live in a society that we measure successful earning a lot of money, sitting on a chair there. Being successful is really, truly living from the heart, and it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you like to clean houses. It doesn't matter if you're a gardener. Because you should ask yourself the question, if you were the only person on earth, would you really want to do that MBA? Do you really want to start that own business?
So you're talking about following your purpose, like
Following your
heart
we are
and
here
your
to
purpose.
remember our soul.
Fantastic.
And the school system has been conditioned us that we are only successful if we become a lawyer.
Do you have
If
a
we follow
question
that.
for any one of the panel? Do you have a question for any one of the panelists? I'm sorry, we're restricting it to questions only. So
What do you think about the conditioning? What is really successfulness for you? Is it from the heart or from the ego?
who would you like?
Anyone
to,
that wants to answer.
You know,
Judy?
that's an interesting question because I've defined success differently at different stages of my life.
It's evolving.
When I was actually aspiring to do well, what kept me focused is that I wanted to be financially independent. And at that stage, that's how I define success. It has since changed. Now I define success right now for me means living my purpose. Right now, I feel like I'm actually living my purpose. If you ask me in 10 years' time, I don't know what it will be, but the context changes, and so do you as a person.
I think what's very, very key about this, and thank you very much to the lady who asked the question. I think you've hit on essentially what we're trying to prove in the room over the next 2 days, is that we have to have a strong, strong value system first, which helps us define our purpose, and our purpose evolves. And it can be financial security or opening the company, and so it evolves. And flexibility, and always reassessing ourselves, looking deep into ourselves. The next session is actually going to be personal branding session, and it actually covers a lot of those things. So thank you so much. Blessings. Lady right at the back.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just wanted to make a comment, and I think that I've just discovered that a lot of what we have put to theory about entrepreneurship and success is actually built within every woman in this room. So you talk about collaboration, find somebody that you can work with. You talk about networking. you talk about peer mentorship. I am quite emotional about what you've just all said today. I could never, yesterday or the day before, afford to be here. Okay? But my mentor has paid for me to be here and has not only paid for my accommodation and my flight, but has given me time in every day of her life to shadow her, and whatever she can't do in that time, she hands over. Whatever we make in that time that she can't do, we share. So not only do you have to have the money or to go and work and do all those things and go take a loan, but if you give of yourself to the next person, you'll be amazed how rewarding that is for you.
So you've benefited directly from being mentored. Is that what you're
I
saying?
beg your pardon?
You've benefited directly from being mentored.
Certainly.
Thank you so much.
You must remember there's always an opportunity also. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
So if an opportunity comes to you,
Are you mentoring anybody?
well, I'm certainly being mentored. So whatever success,
The next goal is to mentor
whatever
somebody
success
else.
I acquire will certainly benefit everybody else. So you've got to ensure each and every one of us is bringing somebody up with us.
Thank you so much for your Nossi?
Thank you so much, Michelle, and congratulations to Irene for such a successful AWIEF forum. My question is to any one of the ladies. In my life of being 28 years old and coming from Khayelitsha, I've heard a lot of people when they fail, they would say they are a failure, but I haven't heard a lot of people say they are a success. And my question is really is, would you put success as part of your identity? Would you, Judy, or Margaret, stand in front of us and say, I am a success? Because I know, want to one day, in fact, I want to say that even now, although I'm not a multi-billion business, I want to stand one day and to say to young people, to everyone, and say, I am a success. So I would have liked to hear you say you are a success, because in actual fact, you are
I think that's
a
a
success.
challenge.
But could you say that? Can one just say that for us?
I think all three of you ladies need to stand up and say that.
I'm a success. Yeah.
Gina?
I'm successful. Yeah, I'm a success. I'm successful. Yeah, there you go. You know what? I have one thing that I want to add, though. I'm successful, but that's not enough. I want to be significant. You know, and I think, Irene, the next conference has to be going from success to significance.
Wow, that's powerful.
And what's the next step? The next step is leaving a legacy.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mireille, and I am from Rwanda, East Africa. To the point of significance and mentorship, I run a coaching company, and I also organize events such as this relating to women economic empowerment. And I believe, Margaret, you've been to...
I've been to Rwanda. It's a wonderful country.
There
Tell
you
them about
go.
the cleaning. Your president...
Please
and
don't
they
tell
clean
them about the
tours up.
cleaning.
It's
Because we
amazing.
want to get as many questions in as possible. But
That's
your
right.
question would be?
So the question, it's a statement and the question about mentoring. So to the point of the lady over there, I think since we're talking about success, you can't have that without significance. So those two things run side by side. It's the same hand with two sides. So yes, we have success. We have done amazing things, and we applaud you for that. However, as a part of women empowerment or economic empowerment, it is our duty to pass on that baton or to send that lift back down so
Exactly.
that more can be lifted up there. So
Yeah.
mentorship is clearly something that is important. I understand we don't all have time to have one-on-one activities with the mentees, but what we have done in my company in Dubai, where I used to set up mentoring programs for women, and in Rwanda as well, is that we create structured mentoring programs for successful women in corporations, in ministries, or anywhere else to really spend time with individuals. So we can see a real life example over there of one woman who has, has made it possible for one other person to do that.
The challenge,
I'm
though, now is that she needs to adopt somebody else, too.
She
And I think
will.
a
She
big
will
thing
pass that lead down. That's the
yeah,
point. So in
is
our
pass it on.
structured mentoring programs, we make sure that those who have been there know how to tell. You are the story already, but you need to spend at least one time, once a month, with one person, and there will be a ripple effect. In a year or 2 or 3 years' time, you will be amazed about your significance, about how you will replicate, you will multiply yourself. If only 1 hour of your month will be sufficient. And then
Thank you very
we will
much.
have that change
Sorry,
that we
we're
all have
restricting,
been
we're
talking
restricting
about.
it to questions only. Thank you so much, and I value every single word that you say, and I'm not the baddie, I promise. But just, Judy, you wanted to say something
I
on that?
just wanted to add something. I think someone earlier on said we are a collective. It's not just women, it's women and men. And I find that a lot is expected of women. We tend to beat up the women all the time. Each one of us has a responsibility to mentor. It's not just girls, it's not just boys, it's men, women, girls and boys. So I think it's very important that we don't walk out here feeling that we're pulling each other down, and you know what? Men and women have to mentor. It's
I think also a key thing, and that's why I was making it. I don't think, this whole definition of success, you don't have to be at the top of the pyramid to be able to hold someone else's hand or mentor. And I have students that teach me something every day that are there as interns, but I think I get more out of it than they do because I'm learning all the time from their significance. So I think the challenge, just to summarize, and we're going to have one last question, but I'd like to summarize on the fact that success should be significance as well. So significance should be an ingredient of success. And we spoke about having ambition, knowing where you want to go, doing the work, having focus, building your networks, collaboration, relationships, embracing both success and failure, and then embracing your skill, embracing your self-esteem, and don't borrow money. You can do it without it. You can make it first.
I see so many businesses, they start up, and the first thing you do, you start to make money. What's the first thing you got to do? You got to pay back the loan. And not only that, but you got to pay them interest as well. You never catch up, and that's why you don't want to carry on. Why is our statistics are 97% of all businesses that opened 3 years ago will close this year, and 97% of all businesses that open this year will close in 3 years' time. Not because they're bad, not because you're a bad business person. You've just borrowed so much money that you can't pay it back, and that's what's going to pull you down. If you just go slowly, you can't make it overnight. Go slowly and build those businesses up, and I promise you will get there.
One last question, and I'm going to please ask that it gets kept to a question, ma'am, and to direct it at one of the panelists, and then a closing statement from each of the panelists.
I've spoken a bit too much today, but it is my responsibility. How do you deal with inconsistency and people who are unable to persevere? Because if you want to succeed, there's a certain level of perseverance and consistency you must maintain. As I mentor young women, I find that in most of them. Getting back to something very quickly, I started as a PA to a minister. And but actually, when we got out of the bush, I said, "Who is the minister? Is it you or me?" I didn't even know because we're wearing camouflage. So we said, "You don't know, right? I'm the minister. You sit here." And I said, "Okay." And then we were wearing camouflage, and somebody said to me, "No, you are now civil servants. You don't wear these clothes. Go and look for good clothes." Went out, and when I looked at good clothes, nice-looking clothes, we go to this place where there was a bling bling. Said, "This is what is required." We took our bling bling clothes, me and my boss, and the next day we're in the office bling bling, and nobody commented us, right? Until when it was late in the day, somebody came over and said, "Your clothes are very nice, but these are for the evening." Having said that, I want to say to you, how do we deal with this? Because one girl said to me last week, Minister, I'm looking for a husband. That was in church. And she has been praying for a husband. I said, no. Go out and hang around where boys are. God has no time for stupid people. Don't hang around and sit just here. So really, when you talk to young girls, they are so split in what they want. And at times you are unable to deal with them. How do we deal with that? I thank you.
I'm just a bit confused. How do we deal with the bling bling? Or how do we deal? No, I'm teasing. So I think just to summarize the question, when we want to be successful and we have people within our businesses, we need consistency and persistence from our people. How do we get that? Margaret will start.
I'll say that, you've got to lead by
If we
example.
could just limit it to maybe 30-second answer,
Okay,
please.
lead by example. You show them how they have to be. They don't know. Who's going to teach them? You've got to teach them, and you've got to teach them perseverance. They
Back
don't
to
know what they don't
mentorship.
know. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic, thank you. Tina?
So I think, I think we need to take people, nurture them. I mean, gardens aren't built overnight. We need to nurture, we need to seed them, water them, and also show them that resilience is, being an entrepreneur or being successful is not for sissies. It's slow, it's unsexy, and it's inconvenient. And I think that's sometimes the mistake that people make, is that they want to be entrepreneurs or they want to be, successful, not realizing that the path to get there can be really tedious.
Really
So,
hard
and,
work.
and we just have to teach resilience and strength.
I think Robin Sharma says you have to beat your craft for 10,000 hours before you become a master.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard work. If you want to be a master, you need the 10,000 hours.
Just the core of each one of us, I believe, is your value system. And the culture you create in your company, in your family, is based on your value system. Sometimes you say a lot of things, but it's not so much what you say as opposed to how you live your life.
Absolutely.
That your kids will emulate, that will be emulated by your people within your staff. But also the other thing that you actually alluded to, Gina, is developing your people. Finding that which is best in each one of them, working with it, and allowing them to flourish and inspire them to be better, to be the better selves that they can be.
Thank you to all three of you. You are amazing. I'm inspired. And thank you to the amazing audience. The next session that will be coming up, Lungi, are you going to do an introduction? She's actually my mentor, so I can't help it. I'm excited and I can't wait. She's come all the way from Sweden. Thank you, everybody.